of a trial and then subjecting him to capital punishment, where he's going to be like executed in public and all this stuff. He's like, I'll send him out and let him have a honorary death because he's going to get killed.
Military death.
He's going to have a military death. He's going to go out to the front lines. He's going to be killed for sure. And that's what he did. He sent him out to die. And the Bible writes, he killed a man, and he took the guy's wife because the guy was married, and David saw him, and it makes David out to be like such a perv or something. He sees this woman, he's all excited. He saw this woman. He saw that the Messiah, the Mashiach, would come from this woman, because it says that Messiah is the son of David. It comes through this woman. He foresaw that with what's called Ruach HaKodesh. He saw it with
Holy Spirit.
Yeah, but how do you say?
The divine.
You see into the future.
Yeah, he saw the future.
He saw the future, and he saw that the Messiah would come through this woman. Now people say, "Oh, but wasn't he with a married woman?" And the answer is no, because the Torah tells us that before, when the Jews go to war, before anyone goes to war, they're required to give a divorce, a get. They have to give a divorce to their wives before they go to war. And the reason for this is, do you know it? Back there in the...
Go ahead.
Okay, so the reason that they have to... Every soldier has to give his wife a divorce before he goes into the army. Before he goes to war. And the reason is because we're afraid of what's called a naguna. And a Torah says the naguna is a woman who doesn't know if her husband is alive or not.
Yeah.
Or alive or dead, and she's not allowed to remarry until there's proof that he's dead. Now, it could be that, there's a lot of, I think there's like 2,500 people who, soldiers went to Vietnam, and we never found their bodies. They were like MIA, POW, never found them, as far as I know.
Yeah.
We never recovered them. Their wives, theoretically, wouldn't be able to get divorced, according to the Torah, because you need proof. You either see the body, or you have two witnesses who saw the guy dead.
Okay.
I believe that's the halacha. And without that... what's called a naguna, you're stuck, because if you go and marry somebody else and you never got a divorce and your husband was never dead, then you're guilty of adultery.
Right.
And that's a capital offense. So that's a big deal. And a lot of women are stuck in these situations, and it's horrible. So to avoid that, the Torah says before a man goes out to battle, he must give his wife a divorce. And so all the men were divorced, according to Uriah. So before he goes out to battle, he gives this woman a divorce. So when he was out there getting executed, the wife was already a divorced woman. David married a divorced woman, which is not a problem, and from them came the Messiah, and or the line of which. And so you see that David never committed a sin. He did everything. He gave this guy an honorary death. This woman was already divorced. He didn't do anything wrong.
Okay.
Now, if he did do something wrong, what's the matter?
Nothing, just out of the break, I'd like to bring in adulthood. So,
okay.
So finish your point.
Okay, if he did do something wrong, here's the thing you have to think about.
Mm-hmm.
He's the one who wrote his own book. Right? He wrote Kings.
Yeah.
Right? He wrote it. Why would he write something about himself that puts him in such a terrible light?
I'm not sure.
It doesn't make sense. So the people who say, oh, David did all these terrible things, really? Would he write that down if he did? If you did something really bad, right? Like, let's say you had
sex with a shiksa.
You had sex, no, with a married shiksa.
Yeah.
You had sex with a married shiksa, right?
Yeah.
And they said, Levi, write, a blog post about. Would you do that? Would you admit to it? It's like.
Depends.
Okay, so we're talking about one of the greatest people, the greatest leaders in Jewish history. We talk about him in our prayers. When we give someone a blessing, we say, "Who the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and David, Moses and Aaron, and David and Solomon." He's one of our greatest. We wouldn't do this if it were true that he was like this, an adulterer and a murderer. He would be one of the worst Jews ever. He's not. The reason he wrote that in there is because God said, this is what I want you to write down. And the reason why God wanted it written that way is because the Torah is set up so that the backbone, that the spine of it, the written, is meant to be written in riddles.
Interesting.
And so that if anybody finds it on its own,
Right.
they're going to assume one thing. Meanwhile, the Jews who have the body know the real truth. And David is rest assured that he doesn't care what those who only find a skeleton think, because that's not important. What's important is the Torah, the big body, and everybody knows the truth that he never sinned. We would never have that kind of a question.
Okay, let me bring in Adolpha. So Adolpha, if you wanted to help the rabbi so that he sits more easily, so he talks more easily with more freedom in his neck and more freedom in his body and his whole gestalt, what would you start saying or doing with that?
Well, I remember one of the things that we talked about when we were doing the sit-stand work was that you felt like halfway through the Torah talk that you were a little tired, like you could use a break and then maybe restart the Torah talk. Is that an accurate representation of what you said?
Wait a second, say that again?
That you felt like maybe
2 hours was
the
too
2
long.
hours was
and
a
you
bit
felt
Oh,
long.
right.
Okay.
I felt like 2 hours was too long
Yeah.
Right.
if in one sitting.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
either we make it shorter, or we take a break halfway so I can get up and stretch and walk around a little bit
Right.
and stretch my back. And Levi said, no, you can do 10 hours straight if you're on this
Right.
program.
Exactly. So that feeling of